spiritual thing. So what do you do with when you come back? Which body are you in, right? Because a person could have many bodies in their time on Earth, because they just keep getting reincarnated in different bodies. So which one do they come back with? That's one question. Another one is, what if you were in a body and it was disintegrated in the Holocaust or beheaded or something like that? How does this work, right? And there's not a lot written on it. There's not like gobbles and gobbles of literature that's written on this, because Judaism doesn't spend a lot of time talking about the afterlife, right? But if you learn the Ramchal and you're at that level, it is there.
When my mother was carrying me, she was seized with the premonition that I'd grow up to do something wonderful for God.
And you're doing it right now, so she was right.
My parents told me this story many times when I was a kid to encourage me, but when I became an adult, they feared that by telling me the story over and over, they had created a narcissist.
Look, you've given them tremendous Yiddish nachas. You know why?
Why?
Because look what you're doing right now. You're telling the world, you're hosting the Torah talks, right?
So maybe I'll get into the next world on your coattails, because of the kind and gentle way that I've always acted around you. And I've hosted you.
You can hold on to my payas.
I can hold on to your payas.
You can hold on to my payas and
get into the next world.
And yeah, I'll take you there. There you go. Or maybe you can hold on to my thigh.
I think I'll go with the payas, or I'll just forget. I'll just skip the whole next world. So Isaac was a monogamous. Was he the happier for it? Because Abraham and Jacob, Abraham and Yaakov had lots of wives and concubines, which on the one level sounds very fun, but I fear that if I had many wives and concubines, I would not be as spiritual as I am today. So did Isaac have it better being monogamous, or did Yaakov and Abraham have it better by having lots of bitches?
I don't like the fact that you call our holy, saintly
matriarchs
as bitches.
Yeah,
I don't exactly like that. You could also say one more. Yosef he only had one wife.
Right, so
it seemed to skip.
Is that a blessing?
It changes each generation, because Abraham had more than one woman, Yitzhak had one, Yaakov had more than one, Yosef had one. So they do the opposite of their parent. Is it better? I don't know. I don't know. It says, you know what it says in Torah?
Yeah.
The increase in wives and increase in
superstition?
Yes. Witchcraft.
Witchcraft, yeah.
It's why? Because it's harder to keep a lid on what you're. It's harder to control women when there's more of them.
Yeah.
It's much easier to control one woman. You get one wife, you keep the lid on her, right? You keep her, control your woman, right?
Yeah.
But you get like 2 or 3 women, and it's much more harder, much more difficult to.
I've had that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Just think, Luke, if your mom had said you shall grow up to be a great journalist by covering a very specific subculture.
If you had Jewish parents and you went into that, they would sit shiva for you. They'd tear Kriya.
It's a shame we don't use that strong-boned ass compliment more today, as the Torah does for Issachar in Genesis chapter 49:14. Have you heard anyone called a strong-boned ass?
No, I've heard people called assholes before, though.
But not strong-boned ass.
No, not a strong-boned ass. I've heard people say,
bone that ass, man.
Bone that ass. I've heard that one.
When Jacob prays for Dan's salvation, Genesis 49, verse 18.
Wait, who's in the chat room? Let's take another look and see who's in there. We can say hello.
Sheriff of Torahtown.
Anybody?
Gregor.
Gregory.
Abijah.
Yeah.
Ellen.
I know these people. Hello.
Bernadette.
Hi, Bernadette. Good to see you again. Nice to see you. I feel like, it's like old times with Bernadette back in there.
I think Paul Fishbein's parents sat shiva for him when he...
Who?
He created and edited and published Adult Video News.
Where's his parents from?
No, not so from. More like secular.
Oh, okay.
But he always closed ABN on Yom Kippur in honor of his parents.
I'm impressed. No stooping on Yom Kippur. He takes it seriously.
So when Jacob prays for Dan's salvation, does he mean Samson, or does he mean that he longs for Dan to be in heaven with him?
According to Rashi, it means Shimshon. It means Samson. Samson is a descendant of Don.
Now, Jacob appears to have died without knowing what the brothers did to Joseph, because he does not mention it in his final speech. I suspect Jacob did not want to know what happened to Joseph.
That could be like an interesting shot of it, right? But I tend to think he knew because he had Ruach HaKodesh. If you could, think about this now, okay? If you can see thousands of years into the future, if you can see everything that's going to happen to the end of days, if you know all this, and we just talked about like Samson and Achav and Yerovam and all these people that are coming up later, you don't think you're able to see that these guys pulled a shtick on you with your other son? Come on! He knew. He had Ruach HaKodesh. He saw it. He's just playing it on the down low.
Sheriff wants us
He landed on the white.
Mila Kunis in for some Torah talk. I wouldn't mind studying Torah with Mila Kunis.
That name sounds familiar. That was from
She's an actress we talked about her last week.
He's got a thing for, he probably jacks off to her 3 times a day.
The sheriff of Torah Town does not commit the sin of onanism.
But you told me he's not from. What do you think, he's like a tzaddik on his own?
Yeah, he's a secret tzaddik.
Okay, I see.
So the Midrash says that Joseph, after Jacob's death, stopped inviting his brothers over Shabbat dinner.
That's right. Why?
So that's why they got really nervous.
Why did he stop?
And I can tell you that.
Okay, go for it.
And the answer...
I'm watching a Cialis commercial. I once had to call the doctor because I had
your erection longer than 4 hours?
4 hours, yeah.
But he was a guy, so why would you call him? It's pretty suspicious.
What?
If your doctor was a woman, an attractive woman, I could understand calling her if your erection lasts longer than 4 hours.
Hey, baby, I got an erection. It's still going.
But if your your doctor's a guy, what's the point?
But the thing was, I wasn't even on Cialis. I just manufactured a boner and it wouldn't go down.
Oh. Erase. Let me go back to the sacred text.
Okay.
While Joseph used to invite the family to dine with him very often during Jacob's lifetime, received them all very warmly, he now stopped doing so. For them, this meant that once Joseph no longer had to show deference to Jacob, he was revealing his lingering animosity toward them. They feared that he would avenge himself against them for having sold him. They were wrong. The real reason for stopping the invitation was that Jacob used to insist that Joseph sit at the head of the table. Now, however, Joseph felt uncomfortable about taking precedence over Reuben and Judah. On the other hand, it would be a violation of protocol for the viceroy to relinquish his position, so he stopped issuing the Shabbat invitations.
Okay, that's not what Rashi says, but I buy it. That's fine. Rashi has a little bit of a different vort.
Mm-hmm.
He says that Joseph only invited the brothers to the Shabbos tables out of respect for his father, but otherwise he would never have done it to begin with. And so when his father died, he no longer had a reason to bring them.
Sheriff says all he's trying to do is shift the tenor of this chat back to heterosexual norms. I am here really as a chaperone. But Sheriff.
Oh, okay.
He's a chaperone.
Okay.
Thanks, Sheriff. Why doesn't God create more women in the image of Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman?
I can't answer that.
We're trying to study sacred texts here, folks, not lust after actresses who probably aren't froom anyway. So Jews are a merciful people. There's a midrash that says that any Jew who is merciful is truly a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and any Jew who's not merciful is truly not a descendant of Isaac, Yaakov, and Jacob, and Isaac. So there's this story, maybe apocryphal, maybe historical, of a Jew being arrested in Poland and being shipped onto the trains, and as he's shipped onto the trains, he yells at his non-Jewish neighbor, "Hey, please don't forget to feed my chickens." So lots of commandments in the Torah, not just about how you treat other people, but how you treat animals, commandments against cruelty to animals.